consistency. Consistency. Do it over, do it until the person can trust your action. Hi, my name is Colleen Theophil, and this is Live a Life You Love, the podcast. I am your emotional intelligence coach, and I am here to help you go from simply surviving to thriving by teaching you how to manage your emotions and using that information to create momentum in your life. Today, we want to bring the conversation full circle. We've been talking about what is the problem? Conflict resolution for the past few weeks. And so we want to talk about after the conflict because we know that, of course, you had this fantastic time. Everybody shared their feelings. We've all come together, kumbaya. We've solved the problem. So what happens now? It doesn't just magically disappear. Sadly, our brain doesn't work where you simply forget something that has happened. But there's a need for us to move forward. There's a need for us to make peace with what has happened and create something new, something desired going forward. So we want to talk about very simply and very quickly today, life after conflict. And so I want to share three simple things that I want you to keep in mind as you are navigating this new dynamics of having resolved the conflict. The first thing is I want you to take stock of what has actually happened. Your job here is not to ignore that a conflict existed. However, I want you to view it through these lens as you are taking stock or debriefing, as I like to say, of the situation that happened. What did you learn about yourself in the middle of it? Conflict shows us and teaches us a lot about ourselves. Did you discover you have an anger issue? Did you discover that you are not very good at being corrected? What is it you learned about yourself? Then, can you see how it all occurred? Were you able, now that things are over, to identify what was the root of the situation? What part you had to play? Because we have to be earnest and say we have a part to play in the conflict that we experience. Can you identify the part that you played, the part that the other people played, or just external factors that caused the conflict to happen? Can you also identify what triggered you? You will keep hearing me use the word triggers on this podcast because it is so important. Know thyself and to thyself be true. Know your triggers so that you know that if it arises again, because you're aware of it now or this time, it can actually maybe not lead to a conflict because you're aware of how this happened. So that first point in life after conflict is very simple. Take stock of what happened. Sit down and debrief. The second thing, which is so important, is now that the dust has settled, make your expectations clear. Especially if this was a scenario where conflict arises from unmet needs or unclear expectation, your job now is to clarify that which had been cloudy. Clarify that which was a mystery. So you need to sit down with each other and say, what do I expect now that things are resolved? Now it's going to look different for different scenarios. So for example, um clear expectations on a job is going to look different from what it looks like on work. So for example, on a job space, just remember, as much as companies push the narrative of we care about you, their main goal is productivity at the end of the day. They want their businesses to do well, and so productivity is their main goal. Now, how do you leverage that as an employee? I agree that I must give productivity, but I also want to leverage the fact that in order for me to be productive, there's an environment that you need to create. And so you now have to have clear, respectful communication between each other to be able to decide what does productivity look like for me and what I need for you to do in order to be productive and create those very clear goals, whether it is with HR, whether it is with your boss, a fellow coworker, but be clear. On the flip side of a relationship, the expectations, it could be that the point of the resolution was for reconciliation, or the reality of it is it could be for separation, whatever that looks like. That's in friendship or in relationship. Make sure you're very clear in the reconciliation what that change behavior needs to look like. What needs to be different in your behavior? What needs to be different in your attitude so that I can move forward with you? And as well as now, I have to hold you accountable to these expectations and you hold me accountable. So in a relationship, that is what it looks like. And then as well in relationships, boundaries. Remember, sometimes conflict arises because a boundary has been broken. So, what boundaries are you going to put in place to protect yourself, protect your core values, as well as protect the other person from messing with the boundaries that you have set? So, that is making your expectations very clear. take it a step further and write it down. So you have proof. You say, you remember when I tell you about this? Now, of course, again, I'm always going to preach that message of do not be manipulative or malicious in your intention. You are holding each other accountable because you want better. And then the last thing, which is very simple, is rebuilding trust. Trust takes time. You're not going to magically get over what was done for you. Forgiveness is something that has to be acted out continuously. Sometimes forgiveness, someday, every day, you might have to check yourself. I forgive this person, and then live with that reality of I have chosen to forgive. But rebuilding trust can look very simple. Start by doing very simple, low risk activities that can help rebuild this person's trust. Simple things that they want for you. Build the habit of now doing those little things. Don't go too wild, make crazy promises. Little steps. A part of that needs to be consistency. Consistency. Do it over, do it and do it and do it until the person can trust your action. And so when you're rebuilding trust, remember it takes time. It takes time. You have to give yourself time, as well as you have to be consistent. And then that last thing under that is check in with each other. Do check ins. How has my progress been? Have you been seeing change within me? Have I seen change in you? You have to check in. You're not going to know if you don't have that clear and effective communication that we talked about. So very quick, very simple, very effective episode this week. Now that the conflict has passed, the dust has settled, here's what you need to do. Take stock of what happened. What did you learn? Can you acknowledge the part that you played? Do you know what your triggers are? The second thing is make very clear expectations. If it is a boss situation, you want productivity from me, no problem. My exchange is what environment are you going to create for me to be productive? Or on the flip side, if it's reconciliation or separation, we need to clearly define the boundaries, clearly define the actions or the change behavior that we want from each other so that this could work. And then the third thing is simple as rebuilding trust. Let time do its job by putting in the work. Attempt low risk activities that you know slowly builds a person's trust, as well as make sure that you are checking in with each other. So I know we talked about conflict for an entire month. I hope it has been useful to you. So as we wrap up this series, remember, conflict in and of itself is not bad. We need conflict because sometimes it leads us to the solution. And sometimes the only way we get to that solution is by realizing that there's friction and that there's something that needs to change. Remember, we talked about making sure you understand the root. You can't try to fix something that you don't even know what you're trying to solve. So make sure and get to the root of it. Then we also talked about the importance of managing your emotions in the midst of it. Find your anchors. Find the things that work for you that help you figure out how you feel those emotions in your body. Then we talked about effective communication and we talked about active listening, active responding, and of course today we talked about moving on beyond that conflict. So thank you so much for tuning in to Live a Life You Love. Do me a favor as we are at the end of this month. What are some other topics you would like us to address here on Live a Life You Love? Of course, I have my topics, but it's always better to hear what are some real life situations and things you would like us to address from an emotional intelligence standpoint that you would want me to address, even if it's a matter of adding guests, whatever that looks like to you. Let me know in the comment section. You can shoot me a message. So thank you for being a part of our community. If you have not shown us the love yet, please subscribe, share, comment. If you know this is going to help somebody, please pass on the information. I am Kelly Phil, and this has been Live a Life You Love.